You steal the benefits of life. I'd respect you if you were a big thief, but you're a small, cowardly thief. You're shrewd and adroit, but because your mind is constipated, you can't create. So you steal a bone and crawl away to gnaw at it. Freud once told you as much. You gather around the willing, joyful giver, and you suck him dry. You suck, and in your perversity you call him the sucker. You cram yourself full of his knowledge, his happiness, his greatness, but you can't digest what you've eaten. It comes right out in shit and stinks abominably. Or to preserve your dignity after your theft, you revile the victim, calling him a madman or a charlatan or a seducer of children. Yes, a seducer of children. Do you remember, little man, you were the president of a scientific organization at the time, how you slandered me, telling people that I encouraged my child to watch the sexual act. I had just published my first paper on the genital rights of children. And another time, do you remember? You happened at the moment to be president of an association for some sort of culture in Berlin. How you spread the rumour that I took teenage girls out to the woods in my car to seduce them. I have never seduced a teenage girl, little man. That's your dirty mind, not mine. I love my wife, or my woman. I'm not like you, the dream of seducing little girls in the woods because you're unable to love your wife. And you, little adolescent girl, don't you dream about some movie star? Don't you take his picture to bed with you at night? Don't you sneak up to him claiming to be over 18 and seduce him? And then what? Don't you hail your movie star into court and accuse him of rape? He's either acquitted or convicted, and your grandmother's kissed the great movie star's hands. You understand, little girl? You wanted to sleep with the famous movie star, but you hadn't the courage to do it on your own responsibility, so you put the blame on him. You poor raped little thing. Or, for that matter, you poor raped woman who experienced more pleasure with your chauffeur than with your husband. Didn't you seduce your Negro chauffeur, whose sexuality was still close to the African jungle? Didn't you, little white woman? And afterward, didn't you accuse him of rape? You poor helpless thing, you victim of primitive bestiality? No, of course not. You were pure and white, a member of the Daughters of this, that, or the other revolution, a northerner or a southerner, whose grandfather got rich dragging African Negroes from the free jungle to America in chains. How innocent, how pure, how white, how far from any desire for black flesh, you poor little woman, you miserable coward, you monstrous product of a sick race of slave hunters, you descendant of the cruel Cortes, who lured thousands of trusting Aztecs into a trap and shot them down. Ah, you poor daughters of this, that, and the other revolution. What do you know of the yearnings of the father of the American Revolution, or of Lincoln, who freed your slaves, whereupon you promptly threw them on the free market of supply and demand? Look at yourselves in the mirror, you chaste, innocent daughters of the red, white, and blue revolution. Do you know what you'll see? A daughter of the Russian Revolution. If you had just once been able to give a man love, the lives of a good many Negroes, Jews, and workers would have been saved. Just as in children you kill what is alive in yourselves, so in Negroes you murder your own intimations of love, your pleasure fantasies that have degenerated into frivolous pornography. What abysmal meanness your deadened sex organs breed. No, you daughter of this, that, and the other revolution, I have no desire to become a district attorney or a commissar. I leave that to your rigid animals in robes and uniforms. I love my birds and my deer and my badgers, which are close to the Negroes. I mean the jungle Negroes, not the ones in Harlem with their stiff collars and zoot suits, not the fat bejeweled negresses whose frustrated desire has been converted into excess flesh or religion. I mean the slender, supple bodies of the South Sea Island girls who let themselves be fucked by you, the sexual pigs of this, that, and the other army, unaware that you draw no distinction between their pure love and what you'd expect to find in a Denver brothel. Yes, little white woman, you crave a living being who has not yet understood that he's exploited and despised. Though your German counterpart, the daughter of the Germanic race, has ceased to function, you're still with us as a Russian daughter of the triumphant working class, or as a daughter of the American Revolution. But in 500 or 1,000 years, when healthy young men and women with healthy bodies have learned to cherish love and to safeguard it, nothing will remain of you but a ludicrous memory. Haven't you, you cancerous little woman, denied your concert halls to Marian Anderson, who is the very voice of life? Long after all trace of you will have vanished from this planet, Marian Anderson's name will be singing throughout the centuries. I can't help wondering whether Marian Anderson also thinks centuries ahead, or whether she forbids her child to enjoy love. I don't know. Life has its own rhythms and seasons. It contents itself with those who let it live and has no need of you, cancerous little lady. You've propagated the myth that you are society, little woman, and your little man has swallowed it. You are not society. Yes, you announce every day in the big Jewish and Christian newspapers that your daughter is about to embrace a man, but nobody in his right mind is interested. Society is the carpenter and the mason and the gardener and the teacher and the doctor and the factory worker and myself. We are society, and not you, you rigid, cancerous, mask-like woman. You're not life. You're its greatest curse. But I understand why you've shut yourself up in your fortress with all your money. In view of the smallness of the carpenters and gardeners, and doctors and teachers and masons and factory workers, no other course was open to you. In the midst of this plague, it was the wisest thing you ever did. But what with your constipation, your gout, your mask, your negation of life, smallness has become second nature to you. You're unhappy, poor little woman, because your sons go to the dogs, your daughters grow up to be whores, your husband dries up, your life rots and your tissues with it. You can't tell me any fairy tales, little daughter of the revolution. I've seen you naked. You've always been a coward, daughter of this, that, and the other revolution. You had the happiness of mankind in the palm of your hand, and you frittered it away. You brought presidents into the world and taught them triviality. They hand out medals and get their pictures taken. They smile their everlasting smiles, and are afraid to look life in the face. You, little daughter of the revolution. You had the world in the palm of your hand, and what did you do? You dropped your atom bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That is, your son dropped the bombs as a sample of things to come. What you dropped, little cancerous woman, was your tombstone. With those two bombs you bombed your whole class and race into the tomb for all time, because you hadn't the humanity to warn the men and women and children of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and because you were too small to be human, you will perish as silently as a stone sinks into the sea. It doesn't matter in the least what you think and say now, little woman, who has brought such idiotic generals into the world. In 500 years you'll be remembered only as a curiosity and a laughingstock. If that's not the universal opinion of you today, it's only one more sign of the wretched state of the world. I know, little woman. All the appearances are in your favour. You are fighting for your country, and so on. I heard that once long ago in Austria. Did you ever hear a Vienna hack driver shouting, "Long live my emperor"? No? It doesn't matter. Just listen to yourself. It's the same tune. No, little woman, I'm not afraid of you. You can't do anything to me. I know your son-in-law is a district attorney, or your nephew is a tax collector in my town. You ask him to tea and slip in an indignant word about me. He's eager for a promotion and looking for a victim, somebody he can sacrifice to law and order. I know how it's done, but that won't save you, little woman. My truth is stronger than you. He's biased. He's a fanatic. Haven't I any function in society at all? I've only told you in what ways you are small and mean, little man and little woman. I haven't said a word about your usefulness or importance. Do you think I'd risk my life talking to you if you weren't important? Your importance, your enormous responsibility makes your meanness all the more monstrous. You're said to be stupid. I say you're shrewd but cowardly. You're said to be the manure needed to fertilize human society. I say you're the seed. It is said that culture requires slaves. I say that no cultured society can be built with slaves. This terrible 20th century has made all cultural theories from Plato down seem ridiculous. Little man, there has never been a human culture. We're barely beginning to understand the awful deviation and pathological degeneration of the human animal. This appeal to the little man, or anything else that can be said on the subject today, however wise and well-intentioned, bears no more resemblance to the culture that will develop in 1,000 or 5,000 years than does the first wheel contrived thousands of years ago to a modern diesel locomotive. Your thinking is short-sighted, little man. You can see no farther than from breakfast to lunch. You must learn to think backward and forward over the centuries. You must learn to think in terms of life as a whole, of your development from the first plasmatic flake to the human animal who walks upright but continues to think in twists and turns. Because you've no memory for things that happened 10 or 20 years ago, you're still mouthing the same nonsense as 2,000 years ago. Worse, you cling with might and main to such absurdities as race, class, nation, and the obligation to observe a religion and repress your love. You're afraid to acknowledge the depth of your own wretchedness. From time to time you lift your head out of the muck and shout hurrah. A frog croaking in a swamp is closer to life. Why don't you save me from the muck? Why don't you attend my party meetings and political conferences? You're a renegade. In former days you fought and suffered and made sacrifices for me. Now you insult me? I can't save you from the muck. Only you can do that. I've never participated in party meetings or political conferences because all they do is shout, down with the main point, and hurrah for incidentals. It's true that I fought for you for 25 years at the sacrifice of my family life and professional security. I gave your organizations a lot of money and took part in your demonstrations and hunger marches. It's true that as a physician I gave you thousands of hours of my time without pay. And it's true that I was driven from country to country for you, and often in your stead, while you were shouting hurrah at the top of your lungs. I was literally ready to die for you. In the struggle against the political plague, I drove you around in my car, though I myself was threatened with the death penalty. In demonstrations, I helped to protect your children against the assaults of the police. I spent all my money setting up mental health clinics where you could go for help and advice, but all you did was take. You never gave anything in return. You wanted only to be saved, and in the 30 dreadful plague years, you never had one fruitful idea. And when the Second World War was over, you were right back where you were when it started, a little further to the left or right, but you hadn't advanced a single millimetre. You frittered away the great French liberation, and you transformed the still greater Russian liberation into the world's greatest nightmare. Your failure, your terrible failure, which only great lonely hearts can understand without anger or contempt, has driven to despair all those who were prepared to make every sacrifice for you. For in all those terrible years, in that murderous half-century, not a single reasonable, salutary word came out of your mouth, but only slogans. Still, I didn't lose heart, because in the meantime I'd gained a better and deeper understanding of your sickness. I knew that you couldn't have thought or acted any differently. I recognized your panic fear of everything that's alive in you. It's that fear which always leads you astray, even when you've made a good start. You simply fail to realize that hope must spring from your own understanding. You pump hope only into yourself, never out of yourself. That, little man, is why, considering the utter rottenness of your own world, you call me an optimist. Yes, I am optimistic, full of the future. How is that possible? I'll tell you. As long as I cared about your obstinacy struck me one blow after another. 1,000 times I forgot how you had rewarded me for helping you, and 1,000 times you reminded me that you were sick. Then one day I opened my eyes and looked you straight in the face. At first I felt a surge of contempt and hatred. But little by little, I learned to let my understanding of your sickness counteract my hatred and contempt. After that I was no longer angry at you for making such a mess of the world in your first attempts at world leadership. It became clear to me that just this was bound to happen, because for thousands of years you had been prevented from living in any true sense. My dear little man, I was discovering the functional law of life while you were shouting from the rooftops, "He's crazy!" At that time you happened to be a little psychiatrist with a past in the youth movement and, due to your impotence, a cardiac future. Later on you died of a broken heart, for no man can steal or slander with impunity, not if he has an ounce of integrity, and that you had tucked away in the corner of your soul. When you thought I was done for, you ceased to be my friend and became my enemy. You tried to give me the coup de grace because, though you knew I was right, you were unable to keep pace with me. And then when I bobbed up like a jumping jack, stronger, more clear-sighted, more resolute than ever, you died of fright. Before you died, you saw that I had leaped headlong over towering barriers, some of which you yourself had raised in your desire to destroy me. Didn't you, in your pussyfooting organizations, pass off my teachings as your own? I assure you that the honest members were aware of this. I know, because they told me. Underhanded tactics, little man, can only bring you to your grave before your time.